we're going to get started. I apologize for the delay. We have a few people missing tonight, but we do have a quorum. So I'm going to call the meeting to order, and it is 5:36 p.m. I just want to make one announcement about the agenda tonight. Because of our reduced number of attendees who will vote, I'm moving item number 10, which is the contract for legal counsel. I will be moving it up to after we complete item number 5 and before the item number 6, the commission reports. All right. Seeing no members of the public. Oh, you want to make a public appearance? Keo? Oh, okay. All right. All right, Keo. Welcome. I don't consider you public, but...
Yes, I'm public, Keo Okazaki, and I have a wonderful guest with me, Tracy Gray. She is the upcoming manager for the Central Library.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you to meet her.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I moved from Arizona. I lived in Northern California about 14 years ago. I went to Chico State and lived all around this area and have been wanting to come back. And so I'm super happy. It feels like I'm coming home. So I'm delighted to be part of this library system and very excited for the opportunity and the challenges and excited about where libraries are going right now and happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Welcome.
All right. So that brings us to the strategic planning session, and Brett Lear is going to introduce us to the process.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Brett Lear, Library Director. Just wanted to give you a quick overview of what you'll be doing for the next hour. As you know, the Sonoma County Library System is at the beginning of a new era. Over the last few months, you've embarked on a new joint powers agreement. You've hired a new director. You have a new CFO. So quite a bit of change recently. Also, I think one thing we saw through our tax measure is you can look at it two ways. Either we lost narrowly or 62% of our public loves us. But I think that it really renewed an interest in the library. With this period of change, we do have some wonderful opportunities. I think you all, the commission of last year, anticipated, with these changes that there'd be a need to set some strategic direction. So there was money in this year's budget to hire a facilitator to help us through the strategic planning process. And through an RFP process, we did hire the results group, and that's who will work with you tonight. Michael Wright's here to lead you through some exercises. Just a really kind of quick overview of the overall process. When I came on board and heard that we were going to do a strategic planning process, it was really important to me that we make that a community-focused project and really turn to our residents and ask them, what do they love about this county? Why do they live here? When they think of the library as a strategic partner in the years ahead, what role do they want the library to play in the community? So that's what we've been doing over the last couple months is the results groups met with staff, with community members. We have the last community session this Friday in Petaluma. And then from there, we roll into a series of focus groups where we continue to ask our residents what they want of their library. Then we'll turn that over to a staff team, and the staff will write the goals and objectives that support those priorities. So really, the staff will write the written document that we'll use as our work plan in the years ahead. As we engage the community in this, I really hope that we build some key relationships with some community partners and perhaps form some partnerships and relationships that haven't existed until now, that we build community goodwill, that we're out there asking our residents what's important to them. And I also do want to tap into our staff's creative energy and really let them, become informed by the community, but then really write the goals and objectives and, help design the services that we provide around those priorities. So this process, it'll result in a clear mission, a compelling vision. We'll pick, again, 3 or 4 themes to focus on so we become excellent in a few areas rather than maybe okay in many. And again, the staff will take what the community comes up with and work with that. So tonight, over the next hour, Michael's going to share with you some of the initial themes that are emerging through these community sessions. And then he'll lead you through some exercises where we'll learn from you what you see as some of the issues and trends that our county residents will face in the years ahead. So does that sound good?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
I'm going to turn it over to Michael. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Wright with the Results Group, and I'll just quickly walk you through what's in this packet you have here, obviously your agenda, what we're going to do, a very detailed schedule of the activities in the strategic plan, and that yellow circle is where we are today, obviously March 23rd. Commission meeting, and as Brett mentioned, we've previously had a series of meetings in Healdsburg, Rincon Valley, and Sebastopol, and are about to have in Petaluma. And those meetings begin with 90 minutes with staff from branches in that regional area, 90 minutes with the LAB Friends and Foundation board members, and then in 90 minutes with the community at large. And we've worked hard to get people out for those, and a couple of you have been at those meetings. And again, the next round is Friday in Petaluma. And then on the back is a series of focus groups that we'll be holding. And those focus groups are where we kind of drill down on specific perspectives, specific stakeholder groups. So educators and nonprofits and people who serve specific populations like Latino and seniors and so forth. Youth and young adults, government and elected officials, funders in the philanthropic community, and the business community. So we will be holding those April 8th and April 20th, as you can see on the schedule. And while we're on that topic, in your packet, the next page is a little summary of those dates and focus groups, because we really want to kind of zero in on that and ask you to suggest the names of any people who you think would be good folks to participate in those groups. And we're not just looking for traditional library users, we're looking for non-users as well, so we can ask them what would make the library more relevant to your life and increase your interest in using the library. Also on the right of your packet should be a little multi-lined document, fill in the blanks kind of a document, which we will send to you electronically, because the lines are maybe kind of small, but and probably you'll have way more names than you can fit on here. These are your suggestions for people that in each of those categories who you think would be good to have at those focus group meetings. And if over on the right, if it's someone you'd be willing to send an email or make a phone call, then check mark there.
Oh, thank you.
And again, we'll send this to you electronically. So those are the materials for now. We'll come back to the, also in your packet you have a summary of what Brett was talking about here in terms of the overall process in the 3 phases and how community and staff are playing a heavy role in that. So it's,
Here's another. Oh.
All right, so now we're going to put you to work. For those of you who've been at the community meetings, you know that the way we did these meetings was 90 minutes, and we had a variety of sizes of groups ranging from, I think, 20 or 25 to 70 in Rincon Valley. And we had 40 high school age folks at that one in Rincon Valley because one of the English teachers at the high school gave all of her classes extra credit if they would come to the library's planning session. So we had 40 teens, juniors in high school. It was fantastic, about 30, 35 folks from the community. And we broke them into small groups where the adults were working with the kids, and we have a little video of it. It's very exciting. It's very wonderful. But each one of these has been surprisingly well attended in this day and age. It's very hard to get people out, but we've had good turnout. We've worked hard to get them there. And likewise, we're going to work hard to get folks at the focus groups. So what we have done in those meetings, for those of you that were there, we got people up and moving around and writing on these big yellow stickies that you see around in front of you with big marking pens, putting ideas up on the wall and brainstorming and thinking together and reforming groups. And we're going to do just a little taste of that tonight with you. So what we're going to do is take about 10 minutes and consider what are some of the major trends that are coming up over time in Sonoma County. Obviously, in strategic planning, you're looking out, you're kind of visioning out. We're talking about the year 2020 as a touch point, although certainly we can think beyond that, and we'll also be developing specific things you want to accomplish in the next year or 2 years. But thinking out about 5 years or so, what are the major trends that you see happening in Sonoma County that are going to make great, that are going to make a difference in Sonoma County? If you think back 5, 6 years ago, things were different than they are now, and 5, 6 years from now, they're going to be different from where they are today. And so we want to think about, just generally speaking, from a community standpoint, what are the most significant trends that are going to change the face of Sonoma County over the next 5 years? And you can think about that in terms of, socioeconomic trends, demographic trends, political trends, sociological trends, environmental, technology. A lot of things are going to be changing in the next 5 years. And so in any of those categories, think about what the major trends and changes are on the horizon. And to do that, I'd like to get you into groups of, let's see, how about if we pull the 2 of you together, the 3 of you together, and the 3 of you together? And we'll have you work as a small group. And your assignment is to take one of these pads, bright colored big stickies, and write on each one idea of a trend. So just a few words on the sticky, one idea per sticky of a trend that you think is really significant. And as you work, I want you to come to consensus around what are the 3 most important ones that you've talked about in your group. So I'll give you a few minutes to think of what various trends are, and then we'll take a few minutes and hone that down into the 3 most important ones, and I'll collect those from you in a few minutes. Any questions? Great.
We're each supposed to do 3.
I know, it's not fair. Does each group come up with 3?
Each group comes up with a
Okay.
selection of their top 3.
Okay,
Yes, you
thanks.
can brainstorm more. You may initially start with 5, 6, or 8, but then hone in down to the top 3 most significant ones, the biggies.
Thanks. Okay. 8.
take another minute to brainstorm your last one or two ideas and then sort out and pick your top three. Okay, so we have some common themes there. We have aging population has occurred among several groups, Latino population and Spanish-speaking, a lot around technology, some commentary about income disparity, and what else have we got there that I haven't? Higher expectations for the library services, green and local, environmental, increased endowments. What does increased endowments mean?
As we have an aging population, let's get into their trusts.
Great. Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do Now we're going to look at these trends, which I've clustered in each group. We'll have similar ones, and then there are one or two unique ones. And so I'd like you in your groups with one change, though, so that you get a little chance to move around and experience how we have people work with different people. I'm going to have us do a little volleyball-type rotation. So, Paul, if you would join this group, if you would just scoot over and become part of that group. And then, Hillary, if you'd come around, all the way around, I know, and add your bright, smiling face to this group. So you're a group. You guys are a group. You may want to move over a little because you'll be working on that flip chart. And what you're going to be doing now is on that flip chart there, I want you to put down for each of those categories, and most of you have like 3 categories, the population ones, a technology-related one, and other. You might have 4. I'd like you to put, what can the library do over the next 5 years to address those trends? And how can the library respond effectively as the community changes and remain relevant? And you can write right on the flip chart, although I'll warn you that given this wall, you have to kind of write lightly because, but it should work. And just a couple, 3 ideas for each trend. What can you do? take a couple more minutes. Make sure you've got a few ideas for each of your trend areas. Okay, one more minute. All right. Well, they jot down their last idea. We'll have someone read off your flip chart, if you will.
So our trends were population growth, underserved population, and aging county population. And for that, what can the library do is to be relevant and accessible. Oh, I think I spelled it to the population as it grows. We also had a trend that there are fewer school libraries and library services filling education gaps. And what the library can do for that is to communicate with and work directly with schools on their needs and coordinate availability as needed for student access. Another trend is there's instant technology gratification need in our society these days. And to address that trend, the library could stay current on technology and increase bandwidth so that more people have access to using technology.
Great. Thank you. How about this group?
Demographics, we thought about making sure the library is always ADA compliant, and that for the demographics that we have a collection that reflects their needs. Mm-hmm. Audio, for example, Spanish language collection, a technology, a website that is up to date, easy to use, efficient. And I heard over here, keeping up with technology, providing apps, bandwidth, a repeat of that. And then for income disparity and job skills training, we had quite a few ideas here for adult education classes in literacy, skills training, computer training, for example, and partnering with educational institutions like SRJC, perhaps offering classes at the library, partnering with businesses, offering entrepreneurship classes, and offering citizenship classes in terms of education.
Great. And
No, I have to speak. For the aging population, what did I write? Technology training for people, doing more social groups, access, like bringing out bookmobiles and stuff to visit the community homes where people live. What else do I? And some social activities. Petaluma has a knitting club, things like that. There are quilt guilds and things like that not associated with the library around here. Okay, for the immigrant/Latino population, do more outreach, do a book club in their language, and of course English language classes and things like that, training also in technology for them. Okay, for cheaper electronics, we could think about doing like an e-book club where the books are read on a device and then people meet and talk about them. I guess that's it.
Okay, good stuff. All right. So we always end our meetings, whether it's the staff meetings, the library friends and LABs, et cetera, community meetings, our branch managers meeting, et cetera, by asking the group, after they've thought about all of the various changes that are going on in the community, all of the areas that the library can do to remain relevant through things like partnerships is a theme that comes up, outreach, that kind of thing, technology, Hispanic population, and all of those different areas. We asked them, what are the top focus areas the library should focus on over the next 3 to 5 years, in the way that Brett mentioned at the beginning, which means that other areas may not get as much attention and resources, but what are the key sort of goals and directions for the library over the next 3 to 5 years? And we get a lot of different responses to that, some very specific and some very broad. And so we're looking for very broad ones. So it wouldn't be something like more Spanish language books. It would be serve the broader community or something like that. So let's just take a minute, and in your same groups that you've just been working in, take the stickies there, and we'd like you to come up with what you think are the 3 broad areas that the library should focus on over the next 3 to 5 years, most heavily, most prominently. Any questions? All right.
Individually, we should do this, or
in the same groups that you just worked with. Or you can change if you want.
Okay, so I'm thinking.
It doesn't have to be anything related to the trends. Just thinking much more broadly about the library as a whole.
This jogged my thought looking at this was,
Increase hours. Oh. Let's increase the hours.
But also providing services, like I love stuff, that outreach. Not so scary.
What, building community?
All right. Have you got your 3? We'll give you another minute. So one of our groups had building community, collaborate with partners to provide specialized services to the community, increased hours and staff, increased public and private partnerships. It's one group's top 3. Double library card users and circulation, parentheses ebooks. Enhance and develop social aspects of libraries, bullet points mentoring, clubs, volunteer activities, including broader community, Hispanic, and immigration groups. I got that right. And expand access opportunities, new locations, bookmobiles, senior centers. All right. And then sustainable funding and infrastructure, partnerships and relationships, excuse me, visibility in the community, i.e. a cultural center. All right, good stuff. So in your packet, in your folders, the last piece of paper has a whole bunch of bullet points on it. And what this is kind of a synopsis of what we've heard so far when we did this with these other groups, all rolled into one. And so their headings were similar to yours. They had increased funding. They have enhanced facilities. They had customer service excellence, which was a whole variety of ways of making libraries more welcoming and a real positive experience for folks beginning to end. Technology was an area. Community engagement and outreach kind of things, the kind of things you talked about here with partnerships and so forth. And then a variety of enhancements to service offerings, similar to some of the things that you said here. So yours were pretty consistent with what the staff said, the community, and the LAB and friends. So interesting, we are finding that high level of correlation across all of the input mechanisms we've had And that's not totally uncommon, but it's very encouraging to see that people are on the same page to a large extent in terms of what the library needs to focus on and where it needs to head over the next few years. So that's really exciting, particularly if you're thinking about a tax measure, as many of the folks in your community groups and others were indeed talking about. That was, by the way, increased funding was the number one most occurring priority in your community meetings. So they got it. One of the groups asked, can we put funding as a thing, or is that assumed when we say we want all these other things? So no, that can be, if you're going to increase funding, you got to give it some priority. You got to focus on it. So they did, and all of them had funding as a priority, and most had things very similar to what you had. So that wraps up our participation. I'd like to remind you that we would love to have your suggested names for the focus groups. And if you want to write down some names and give it to your local library or send it in to Rebecca, that would be great. Or electronically, we'll send you this by email, and you can either use the form or put something just in a reply email, just so long as we know which category you're talking about and who the people are, so that we can reach them. And very important to let us know if it's somebody that you know well enough that you can contact them and bend their arm to get them there, because that's really what gets people to these 90-minute focus groups, is somebody says, you really should go to that.
Michael, I'm sorry, I have a couple of questions about that. I may have seen on here. What time are the focus groups?
Let's see.
Is it on here?
There's a list. There should be a list in your packet.
Yes, I got it. I found it. Thank you. 1:30.
Did you have another question?
Forum room at the Central Branch? Yeah. I didn't put on here and should have. Here are the times.
I see those. Thank you.
Yeah. But what it doesn't say is they're all going to be at the Central Library Forum Room, the big, wonderful, big round forum room at Central. So you can tell people that's where to show up. And, of course, when you submit their names, we'll send them an invitation and follow up with them as needed. So they'll get all the info they need.
And so what kind of a deadline would you need this names and contact information by?
Well, we'd love to have it by, say, the end of this week, early next week.
Okay.
That would be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So anything else on that, Brett? Okay. So we'll go back to the agenda, and I wanted to take the opportunity to offer the public an opportunity to make comment on items that are not on the agenda. But I probably also should offer to let people comment on the strategic planning process if they want to. So did you want to make a comment on an item not on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, come on down. Welcome, and could you introduce yourself or?
Certainly. Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt, and I'm from Roseland. And I came tonight because I wanted to thank you for what you've been involved in the last month or two, and for allowing me the opportunity to come and speak and ask you about possible improvements to the library and to the idea of a branch in Roseland. So I guess I'm kind of blending comments from what you just had up here to what I had here on the overhead. And I wanted to point out that there are a number of people in the community who are now speaking about this idea of a Roseland branch being more than just a pipe dream for a rube from Roseland such as I. That there's actually people in the community who are seeing the positive possibilities. Specifically, because there's interest from the junior college district also, and there's an ongoing city specific plan process, and there's the county proposal to perhaps redevelopment and revitalize the Roseland Village Shopping Center. People are looking at this as if it's a reality. So I wanted to thank the new staff that you have, because they've been accessible and have talked with me, and because it's just this idea that as you're re-imaging and reimagining the library, bringing Roseland into that is a wonderful thing for me. I wanted to say that, first off, everyone will say, we don't have enough money. And that's been this way my whole life. I've never been to any government agency that said, we have enough money. But things can get done. So what I'd like to see you pursue is the idea of new funding sources, specifically user fees for the internet. Down the street from the Roseland Village Shopping Center is the Sonic Corporation, which provides internet services to a number of people in the county, and now even down into the East Bay. And it made me think that if you were to work on this Roseland Village library branch with the idea of having it be Sonoma County's best internet cafe, that you could find a way for user fees to help to pay for this. Get it linked into Sonic to have the fastest internet in the entire county, and have it right there in Roseland, and people will be coming over there to pay to use the internet cafe. And that's the way it should work in a basic free market system. Users pay for what they get, and that helps you help the community get what it needs. So keep that in mind, and don't just dismiss it like you're a free library. I know we're about having free services, but you could charge for the internet, and people would pay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
3 rings, I'm out.
Yes.
Boom, boom, boom.
Go
Mr.
ahead,
DeWitt,
Linda.
thank you for reminding me. I did attend the Roseland meeting. So you came here last time and you invited us to the Roseland community meeting, and we saw that the library got a lot of support. So thank you so much.
And there was a lot of folks there. And you had some good food too, huh?
I had more than enough good food. Thank you.
All right. See us roots in Roseland, we know how to do a good time. Come on over and spend more with us.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, are there any library advisory boards or friends who wanted to make a report tonight? Seeing none, we will move on, as I mentioned earlier, to action item number 10, which is the contract for legal counsel. And Ken is going to talk to us a little bit about that or answer questions that we might have. Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
All right, this is on page 9 of your commission packet. The county council contacted us a month or so ago and asked us, they thought it would be a good idea to have a new contract with the new JP&A and everything. Excuse me. And so we began to look into it, and we found the last contract was dated December 2006, and it's just an ongoing contract with I think a 60-day notice if either party wants to cancel the contract. They've given us good service. On page 10, you can see we gathered a little bit of information, just some recent issues that they worked on us with. The one thing I will say in my limited time here and limited dealing with them, every time you talk to them, they understand the issues very quickly and they're very responsive. And most recently, they helped us with the Measure M the sales tax measure and made sure that the library was staying within the legal guidelines of everything. So you can see there the last, I put down what we've spent so far this year, little under $9,000, and then the last 2 years, which we've sent to the county for their legal help. Their current billing rate is $229, and I looked at some other libraries, specifically the other 5 JPAs in the state, and then I also added Marin County in there just because they're so close. Some of the hourly rates were unavailable. Some of them are rolled up into their county or city fees and everything like that. But the ones we were able to find, the hourly rates are all pretty much in the same neighborhood as the county council charges us. So what we're recommending is not to have an open-ended contract, but to allow the director to negotiate or enter into a contract with the County of Sonoma for legal services for 2 years, or a little over 2 years, through June 30th of 2017.
So I think I might be doing this out of order, but do I hear a motion and then we can have discussion?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. So questions, comments? Barbara?
I would, I'm supportive of doing this. I do think they're a little high. I mean, based on what you had, they're about 10% more than, and so, but our overall budget of $30,000 per year, it doesn't look like we come anywhere near that.
Right.
It's certainly way cheaper than, hiring somebody and having a part-time, our own attorney. So I'm supportive of it, and I also was impressed by the help that we got on Measure M, and it just seems to be a workable situation, and the staff, seems to work well. And I appreciate your comment about them being responsive. So it seems like it's just what we need for legal services, and I think having 2 years is not out of, unnecessarily long, and it seems like a good middle ground. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Do you know if we would have a particular attorney assigned to us?
Yes.
Yes.
It was Linda Shilton?
Shiltkin.
Shiltkin?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious if there was, I know there's attorney-client privilege, and I just wanted to know if that, how that was maintained, and it sounds like we would be assigned someone. And
Yes.
Okay.
Who, by the way, is dedicated to the library. So she loves the library. And we also, in the past, had hired a private company to do some work for us, and their fees were comparable to this, right?
Yes. In prior years, we've hired Liebert Cassidy, I think, out of San Francisco for specifically union negotiations and some other HR things. And they charge $210 for an associate, $210 an hour for an associate, and $300 for a partner an hour. So.
All right. Thanks. And so all in favor of there's a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? No. All right.
Thank you.
So moved. Thank you. All right. So on the agenda, we'll go to commission reports, item number 6. Do you want to start with Barbara on commissioner reports?
Sure. I'll give the Finance Committee report. The Finance Committee met on March 16th, last week. Commissioners are Reese, Paul, Grill, and I, and staff Brett and Ken. No members of the public attended. We are a standing committee with a posted agenda, but we did not have any members of the public attend. We reviewed the February financial report, and we also reviewed the year-to-date actual expenses compared to the budgeted expenses. And the good news is that our income from property tax is about $850,000 above the budgeted amount. So this is great news, of course. Salaries and benefits are about $360,000 under budget, having, as my understanding, to do mostly with empty positions. We also looked at Brett and Ken's list of budget proposed additions for the coming budget year, 15 to 16 budget year. And we're going to bring more information to the commission after we've had one more meeting, which will be before we have our big all-day planning session in April. But on the list of these proposed budget additions are monies for, quote, sustainable staffing in the branches, an IT system manager, since we don't have one, and we do have some great staff that's carrying the load, but we don't have an IT manager at all for this complicated library system. We have some money for overhead signage for the branches, for facilities master planning assessment, some money for presence in Roseland, books and computers, not staff. And again, these were ideas that Brad and Ken spent a good amount of time gathering ideas from the branches and from administrative staff, so there's been a lot of thought going into this. We as a finance committee are very supportive of the idea of having a big master plan for the facilities. I think everybody knows that things are a little run down in places and so forth. So, but we don't want them to just to kind of have a spotty, one-time approach here and there. So there's going to be this master plan, the assessment, and we'll have a plan, and everybody will know what's going to happen. The coming year has a chunk of money in there for Cloverdale, and there's more information on the agenda later on about that. But we want everybody to know what's rolling out for their own communities. So we're going to have this master plan, or we're going to support financing the master plan assessment. So anyway, we're going to have some more ideas to bring to you, to the full commission in April. And we also obviously expect that the strategic planning process that we're talking about is going to lead us in some important directions. Our budget for next year does include increases in salary and benefit costs, the CalPERS rate going up from 16.4 to 17.8%, health insurance budget going up about 3%, materials budget going up about 5%, and the overall increase in the tax revenue property should be another 3.5%. That's apparently conservative, but that's what the number we're looking at. Any questions? Thank you.
Did you have a report from your LAB too?
Oh, that was my finance committee report. Okay.
Yeah, but
you want me to do the whole spiel?
It's actually
while I'm here
precedes it on the agenda. It's the commissioner reports for the.
I'll be very brief. As a commissioner, I gave a report to the Roanoke Park City Council on March the 10th, kind of gave them an update on how the commission was working and our new construct here with 11 members and so forth. I made it a point that we were in the middle of a strategic planning process, and because our meetings are televised in Roanoke Park, I thought the members of the public could hear. So I gave the dates and the times for the next 2 strategic planning sessions and hope people will go to those. I made a mention that we have the coffee with the director on March 26th and hope people would attend that. So anyway, I thought it was a good thing. I think it's good to link back to the governing body that appointed us to the commission and link them back into what we're doing. They seem to appreciate it. On the lab, Roanoke Park Cotati Lab has now full membership. We have somebody we're going to approve tonight who's a really great new candidate. She has library experience, is a little younger demographic, and represents a little younger demographic. And anyway, she's a really neat person. I'm looking forward to her joining our lab. From the Friends standpoint, we're still looking for a volunteer bookstore manager. I think through the strategic planning process, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do in terms of the Friends, getting clarity on what the Friends are supposed to be doing, what the Friends are supposed to be funding, ways that Friends groups can be working together instead of maybe one Friends group giving away all their books at the end of the book sale. Maybe those could go to another book, branch that doesn't have enough branches. So we need to work together more as Friends, and I'm hoping this comes out of the strategic planning process. And again, also clarity on the role of the labs. From the library itself, there's tons of stuff going on. Nancy Kleban, our branch manager, does a really nice report about all the programs that are going on. I won't belabor the point. But I did want to make one comment. Nancy sent a corrected an addition to our library news, and it's the news is that all branches of the Sonoma County Library be closed on Tuesday, March 31st, in observation of Cesar Chavez Day. And my husband made a smart aleck remark of, doesn't it seem kind of crazy to actually honor Cesar Chavez by closing the library? And I thought, seriously, that's a really good point. And I would like to see if possibly, there's a way to really honor Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King, these figures who were all about education and supporting youth and so forth. And by, rethinking that, I know we have lots of, union issues and so forth. But anyway, just wanted to make that point. It'd be kind of nice to be open on Cesar Chavez Day. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So let's just go down the row, and if you have a report from your LAB, that's what we're doing now, and then we'll go do the committee reports.
Okay, from Windsor, our children's librarian, Tiffany, went and did 9 presentations to middle school kids on the joys of the library and passed out library card applications. She's gotten over 60 of them back, and we're hoping for a lot more. We did our usual Lego Saturday. I and a bunch of other members of the Friends and the Windsor Lab went to the Healdsburg strategic planning meeting. Windsor is about to approve 2 apartment complexes of a total of 750 units. Half of those are literally across the street behind the library. So in about 2 years' time, we're going to see a vast increase in library usage. So we need to sort of be concerned and aware of that. So that's it.
I attended the Guerneville Lab meeting on March 11th, and a couple of the highlights, this guy named Paul Heavenridge gave about 100 books to the library, Friends of the Library. I came into possession of 5,000 photography books by this photographer named Rick Smolin, and he did 24 Hours in America, Life in America, and he is consolidating. So we, as a nonprofit, Literacy Works, got 5,000 books. So I've got them stacked in my office and then in a warehouse in South San Francisco. So I brought a bunch of books to them, and they were excited because they have a bake sale coming up. They have an art show coming up that they can give the books away and raffle them, and they're really high quality books. And I just gave a bunch to the Petaluma Library, and hopefully Central can get some. In fact, you can have the rest of the 5,000 if you want. You just have to ship them down. So that they were literally in the minutes. It says Paul literally threw an item on the table, to wit, the offer up the 5,000 coffee table photography books. So anyway, that was good. It was great to excite them about that. Let's see. Also, they have coming up. They have the art shows that I mentioned in April 3rd and on June, and part of the art show will be a photography show, so the books kind of made sense to them. They're having a book and bake sale on April 22nd, and the Friends have $64,000 in the bank. So I think that's pretty good for a small library out there, It's good. And they also are finishing their handbook, which is a long time in coming, so yay Guerneville. And then I will be attending the strategic planning in Petaluma. It almost sounds like it's over. I mean, poor Petaluma. It's like it's a strategic planning. Yeah. I won't share with them everybody else's ideas. How's that? We'll pretend that no other strategic planning has gone on. We'll get some original thought out there. Also, I did want to mention yesterday I went to the Sonoma County Historical Society annual meeting and luncheon. And Rebecca, were you able to pull that up? Well, I just wanted to pull up this photo. Hey, there's Tony Hoskins. They honored Tony Hoskins for the Marino Vallejo Government Award. and it was presented to Tony for his service to local history and genealogy at the Sonoma County Library. There's a nice little plaque. There must have been a couple hundred people there, and it was a real honor, and they're all real concerned that he's leaving. And I did get his card down in Palm Springs now, so we can consult with him when he leaves. But that was very nice. So, and I don't know if you can read that, but there he is accepting it. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Reese? Okay. What? Oh. David.
Yeah, I attended the Santa Rosa Library Advisory Board meeting on March 18th and had a very nice surprise. Council member Julie Combs attended, and she will be attending on a regular basis as our liaison from the city, which I think is wonderful. So thank you very much to Councilmember Combs for doing that and being there and for pledging to support us in the future. Excuse me. I did also hear that the Rose Parade this year has a storybook theme, which I think is ideal for the library. And I also heard that in years past there was maybe a book cart marching drills. There's more information about this? Great, let's hear about it.
Okay. Past member of the drill parade, award-winning drill parade, past 4 years. We're very delighted this year that they're doing the storybook. We're hoping to be at the front of the parade. We have plans to do a Cinderella / Seven Dwarfs. The Seven Dwarfs, of course, will be our drill parade. And we have a wonderful Wicked Witch and, Cinderella plan. And it's all going very well. The person who's sort of in charge of this year is Robin Waters. And they're doing wonderful work. Also involved are our new graphic artists, which is taking advantage of some of our new technology that we've been able to acquire. So it's going to be quite an event for us, for the library, and we're hoping they'll let us start it all off.
Could you just introduce yourself in case...
Pardon me. Stephen L. Corda, Reference Librarian, Government Documents.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for filling that in for me. Again, every time I go to the lab, and especially when I hear from the branch managers' reports, I am astounded by, impressed by, happy about the creativity that goes into planning all kinds of events for our library patrons. It's very rewarding and heartwarming to hear the work that goes on in our libraries. The other thing that I'll just mention quickly is that I think it was in one of the press clippings that you sent out, the Santa Rosa Symphony has shown up at our libraries to much fanfare and much enjoyment. In the Northwest, there's been bilingual story time, which is very popular. And again, that's a fairly small library. And Kim Papanek, who is the interim branch manager, said that in one day in February, they had over 1,600 patrons at that library in one day. So kudos to them for managing that, and the need for that library is obvious, I think. So that was interesting to hear those statistics about how many patrons we had, especially at that small branch in February. There is artwork in all of our libraries, it seems like, and I think that's wonderful to see and hear and be able to partake in if you just walk into the libraries. You don't have to engage in any other way, but there's lots of wonderful things there. There's a kids' summer reading program going on about heroes, which I think is interesting. And the Friends raised about $9,000. Thank you very much, Friends. And they are having some of their book sales in the forum room, which they really like, as opposed to, because we're not charging them for that, as opposed to when they have their book sales at the fairgrounds, which they are charged a rental fee for. So the next forum room book sale is June 5 and 6, and the next book fair book sale from the Friends at the fairgrounds is on Saturday, April 11th. So that's, and the lab is still has a couple of vacancies, and they're busy looking to recruit Latino members to the Library Advisory Board in Santa Rosa. So that's my report there. And I'm also going to give a very brief report. I must say I'm called away, so I'm going to need to leave here in just a minute. But the new Public Relations Standing Committee has not met, but that is, there they are, right there. Neff, Heavenridge, Foxen, and myself. So we will get that together and get that rolling very soon. So that's my report, and if you'll excuse me, I'm sorry that I have to leave.
Yeah, that's fine.
I had the honor of attending the Roseland community meeting along with Commissioner Mackenzie, and Ken was there too, and they were standing room only, and you couldn't find a parking place, and talk about community. But a long story short, there was a lot of support for the library. There was a lot of little sticky dots from the community members who said, we need a library, and not only in maybe the traditional sense of the building, but a shared building in the shared space, as Brett has discussed before. And so this was just the first meeting of several meetings that were going to take place, and they could have been tightened up a little bit because they were translating from English to Spanish, and but I believe they were overwhelmed. They didn't have enough chairs, and maybe Ken or Commissioner Mackenzie would like to comment. But I can tell you that there were a lot of little sticky dots for a library, as well as the Girls and Boys Club. And as Brett has described before, the whole idea of having a not very a permanent building, and that we would have a room in what was a house, and there, so that we would be like in the master bedroom or in the living room or something of a temporary home, and then the Boys and Girls Club would be someplace else, and the JC would be someplace else. But the community was very much behind that, and later the chair of the overall Sonoma County Friends of the Library, a young man, came up to me and said, we really support you in the next measure, the next tax measure. Also, the president of SEIU was there and said, the library's changed my life, and you can count on us again the next time you do a measure. So that was all very hopeful. Again, couldn't find a parking place, lucky to get a seat. It was really well attended, and talk about bringing together a community. I'm happy that I got to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I tried to attend that meeting, and I could not find parking, so I'm glad to hear that it looked like it was crowded. There were families were entering, parking was crazy. So it sounds like it was a fabulous meeting. So I'm going to report on the Sebastopol Lab, which met on February 4th, and they discussed their different projects, and they are talking about seeing how the strategic plan comes out, just to know how to go forward with some of the stuff that they're working on. We had an opportunity to meet Michelle Santamaria, who is the new children's librarian in Sebastopol, filling in behind Tiffany Bronson, and I think she seems like a great fit for the library. There was a volunteer appreciation tea party orchestrated by Matthew Rose, the branch manager, and his staff, and it was really a lovely event, and Brett was there, and I'm forgetting a name, but Brett was there, and of course Matthew was there, and it was well attended by volunteers from all over the place, Friends, Library Advisory Board people, and some of the Lantern members, who probably are also members of both of those other groups. But the Friends of the Library has allocated $10,500 for the branch between January and June, and those monies will be used to reupholster some furniture in the children's area. The recent art show was a great success and well attended. There is a new art show of pictures of the Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, and it's there. There was a little article in the Press Democrat this last week, and it will be there through May 5th, and I really recommend it to people. It's the Cordell Sanctuary was created in 1989, but it was just recently enlarged in size, so it's some really great photographs. And that is all I have.
I don't have a whole lot to add to Commissioner McKenzie's report. The Katati Roner Park Lab did not meet in March. Their next meeting is April 21st at 4 o'clock. There's quite a bit going on at the library. I believe there's a coffee with the director coming up this week. Is that right? On Thursday morning. In addition, I spoke with the Katati City Council to encourage them and inform them about the strategic planning sessions and encourage them to attend.
Okay. So we have a couple of more Commissioner Committee reports to hear. One is the Director Evaluation Committee, and since we're down at this end of the table, Hillary.
The Directors Evaluation Committee met this past week. We're now a standing committee. The committee members are myself, Commissioner Whistler, Commissioner Grill, and Commissioner May. We elected officers, and I am the chair of that committee now. We have set up our meetings for the rest of the year, the rest of the evaluation cycle. And just of note to the Commission, we're going to be requesting a slight change to the meeting time for the May 4th meeting. We'd like to have a closed session before the start of the meeting, possibly from 6 to 7:15, and then begin the regular meeting at 7:30. So that will be on our agenda next month to vote on for the May 4th meeting. I'm suggesting that we start the closed session meeting at 6 o'clock and go to about 7:15, and then begin the regular meeting at 7:30. And that is all.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is the Revenue Enhancement Committee.
Again, because of my physical issues, we didn't hold a meeting, so I have nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Any comments? All right, so the next item on the agenda, did you have something? Okay, is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay. Any?
Second.
Any comments, any corrections? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so there is did everybody see the binders for the correspondence and press coverage? There was not much new. I think maybe one letter. Comments. There's nothing on the consent calendar. We completed item 10, and now we're moving on to the discussion items. The director's report.
Well, you guys have covered a lot of the things I was going to cover, so thank you. I was going to give a little update on the strategic planning process, but I think that after visiting with Michael tonight, you have a pretty good idea of where we're at with that. Again, one more focus group on Friday at Petaluma at 5:30, and then we start our not focus group, but community meeting, and then after that we roll into our focus groups. The Roseland update, again, I think Commissioner Garcia pretty much said about what I know about the process. My wife went there. I was at the director's annual meeting down around LA during that time, but my wife went and represented the Lear family, and she told me the same thing that Commissioner Garcia said, that the library ranked very high on agencies that the community would like to see in that temporary facility. So I did email John Haig of the Community Development Commission and kind of ask what next steps were, and he said right now his commission's really just processing those results that they got from the community meeting and ranking them, and that they'll be in touch about whether or not to invite us, into that facility. So I'll certainly keep you all informed. At the Commission's request, I did form a work group called the Library Funding Options Committee, and Commissioner Foxen and Ken, our CFO, and I have kind of been the nucleus of that group. We've met, 5 or 6 times probably. One of the things we did early on is we brought together a group of folks that have been involved in successful campaigns. So we had a representative from the Marin County Free Library, a representative from SEIU, someone from the Santa Rosa JC, Godby Research Center rep, and then we also had on the phone staff from every library, which the campaign committee worked with last fall during the Measure M campaign. And really we just asked them, what does a successful funding campaign look like? Asked them to share things that they thought we did well last year and things that we should consider next time. And one thing that really came up is that the library should really initiate a public information campaign as soon as possible, where we, really, get our message out into the community, market ourselves better. So that's something that I'm working with Ken now on to see if there's some funding in this year's budget to work on that. And I think you'll see a funding request for the 2015-16 budget where we ask for some funds so that we can do better marketing for the library. And lastly, it's Ken and I just spend an awful lot of time on putting the budget together. As Commissioner McKenzie mentioned, we have to really get that we have to get what comes to you finished in the next few days so that it makes the packet that comes to you for the 13th meeting. So Ken and I are really talking budget hour to hour every day right now. And that's it. Any questions for me?
I had a comment. You always have such great reports. There's so much going on. I wanted to comment on the 25 local authors at the Central Library Forum Room on Saturday, March 28th. Sounds like an exciting event. And ever since Measure M, I got reactivated on Facebook, and because we use Measure, we use the messages on Facebook. And anyway, so I've been seeing a lot of this on Facebook, which is a really good buzz on it. When I went to the Roseland meeting, I got some new friends, Facebook friends, and now we're communicating. So I think that there's a really great opportunity to expand our Facebook. And I know, you're talking about the public information campaign, and there's just ways more to, I'm sure you thought about it. But I'd like to kind of expand that because I'm just finding it really helpful to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, thank you. That was great. So now we're going to go to the management report, the monthly activities document. I also had a couple of questions on some of the things that are in there, and I know different people probably need to come up for that. I was intrigued by the open book, which is on page 14 under public services and youth. It's a paragraph under the one about the symphony. And I went to the open book website to find out a little more, but I wondered if somebody could talk about that. It just is kind of a really exciting, intriguing library.
Yeah. Keo and I and Rebecca have been working on that one. Rebecca came up with the name, so thank you for that. But the concept's kind of based on the human library, which came out of, I believe, Denmark in the early 90s. But the concept really is that some libraries actually check out a person where they may keep a Rolodex of, I guess, types of people that sometimes folks discriminate against or have misconceived notions about. So you might have lunch with an animal rights activist or really anyone that people may have misperceptions about. And the last 3 places I've worked, we've kind of done a spin on this. In Jefferson County, we would bring in 3 different folks that represented certain stereotypes, and folks would sit in a circle, and I would interview the people, and then the audience would interact with them. And then when I was in Multnomah, we brought in one person and put them on a stage, and we had a personality from the local NPR affiliate interview the people. But it's a really neat process. The end result is usually, people turn out not to be that different from anybody else. So it's really, the intent is to maybe break down some stereotypes and misperceptions. So I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. Sounds very intriguing. So we do have like a time frame or it's just very at the very beginning.
When is
phase?
the first one? June 21st? June 27th? June 7th.
And will that be in the structure where somebody interviews people and the audience can interact with them?
Do you want to come up a sec, Keo?
It is a work in progress right now. We have found a facilitator who has lots of experience, so she's going to do the first one for us. And so what Rebecca and I are thinking, but it is still in a thinking stage, planning stage, is that we will have 2 or 3 persons who are willing to be interviewed and that will be willing to answer questions that's posed by the audience. And, we'll have ground rules that everyone respects each other and so forth and so on. Am I answering your question?
It sounds great. So break down barriers.
That's the purpose of this all.
Well, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Wait, before you go. So the seen and heard, I also am very interested in that, and our library advisory board in Sebastopol really loves that project. They loved hearing about it.
Great. We wanted to give Rebecca the credit for this.
Yeah.
It is her brainchild, and it's been well received.
Yeah. So my question is, when will we? So there's a artist reception on June 19th.
Would you like to speak to that, Rebecca? Artist reception.
And I just wondered how the commission, can see the end result, and can it go out to the rest of the libraries and a show be presented in the library branches, and because you're doing the videos, right?
Yeah. So the commission will be absolutely invited as guests of honor, and I have it on my list to send out a save the date this week. The videos will be shown that night, and they'll also be posted on our website. And then the show will remain at Central for a period of time, and I'm working on a tour around the whole county at all of the branches so that everyone gets a chance to have a look.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this.
On June 19th. June 19th. It's a Friday.
I think that's a Friday. Is that a Friday? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Any other questions about the management report? I won't hog all the time. Okay, then I have one more thing. The 3D printing, that's very exciting, that whole project, and I can't wait to have that go out to the branches. All right. So the monthly status report, the performance management report, is that next? Let's see. Any comment for that, Patrick? It's kind of in a hold. It's still kind of holding.
Well, there's some.
You're correct. It is in a holding pattern right now. It hasn't gotten worse, so I guess you could call that a good thing. There are still seeing a regular number of them come across my desk every week, so that's also a good thing that people are addressing those on a regular basis instead of holding on to them or not getting around to them or whatever. So. Again, we're hoping to see those numbers to continue to improve. And it is a focal point for all of the branch managers' performance evaluations. And actually, Q has already started her annual reviews for most of the branch managers. So, as I say, it is a point of emphasis in those meetings.
Okay, thank you. And now, any comments? So then we'll move on to the financial report. Okay.
I don't know if there's any questions. I just have a couple of things. February was pretty standard month, except for one thing that kind of stands out if you look at the details. On page 22, under the revenue section, if you go down to the bottom, toward the bottom of the page, 44050 unrealized gains and losses, you'll see a negative $54,100 there. This was the first year that the county recorded unrealized gains and losses at the end of the year for their investments. It's required by a new standard, accounting standard. So it was put in as an audit adjustment for all the entities, including the library, at the beginning balance for the balance sheet. And then that had to be reversed. It would normally be reversed in July, the first month, but since it was done just in February, you'll see that reversal there. So that it shows as a loss in February. That's because it was a gain at the end of last year.
It's confusing.
It is confusing. But it's just realizing the things that aren't booked at the end of the year on the investments that the county has. And so our money is in the county pool, so part of it comes to us. And so I wanted to make sure I brought that out just because it does look a little strange. Yeah. Commissioner McKenzie gave a great summary of the budget process. The only thing I really had to add there, well, first of all, the projections for this year show that we're going to have about a $900,000 surplus. And as she said, most of that was due to the unexpected tax revenue that came in. We're looking at some small projects that need to be done around the library that we haven't done yet, that hopefully can be done by the end of the fiscal year to maybe use some of that money. A real quick one is to but reseal and restripe the parking lot at the Central Branch. Just things like that need to be done that have been put off. But since we do have a little bit extra money, we're looking at things that maybe we can get done that need to be done.
Are we looking at opening up on Mondays or opening up some extra, like one Monday a month or something like that? Are we looking at all the people that have cut back their hours, increasing their hours, or any of that with that money? Or is it that you can't count on that money every year?
Well, right, we can't count on it every year, that's true. And in the tax revenue, the base goes up and it rolls forward from year to year, so that's a good thing. So it's made the budget for next year not as tight as everybody thought it would be, but still it's still pretty tight. We have to watch our all our P's and Q's. I'm not sure what that means, but my mom always told me that. So we're still working on it pretty closely. But Mondays would cost quite a bit of money, and it's one thing just to open the doors on Mondays, but you also need to have services if you're going to be open that extra day, whether it be programs or more materials or more delivery. So it's not quite as easy as just staffing the desk and opening the doors. But
so it's safe to say we'll do some infrastructure things and then look at it later.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right. And
the one thing I didn't hear Ken mention or Commissioner McKenzie with the budget is that, as you know, we recently completed a staff market average compensation study, and the results, we'll share those results with you at the April budget workshop. But there are some folks that came in under market average, so that's another thing that we're going to have to consider as we create the budget is compensation for our staff. So that'll be another element that you'll see in the budget.
I did want to ask, has there been any change on the Occidental storefront?
Yeah, Ken's been working on that. The thing that we asked of the owner is so that we wouldn't have to staff two shops side by side, right, was to kind of create a doorway between the two. So that's still being discussed and the ramifications that would have on ADA and that. But that's where we're at right now, is seeing if we can create a doorway to where we don't have to, double the staffing.
Right. Okay. Any other questions about the financial report? Sorry if I keep not looking at you, so say something if you want to say something. All right, so we're moving on to the progress report on Goal 4.
We're going to split our time. So since we got some of the digital branch stuff and also some of the infrastructure stuff, Kathy will go through some of the digital branch stuff and then hand it over the mic, so to speak, to Mike.
Hand over the mic?
To Mike.
That's awesome. Sorry, I cracked myself up. The digital branch, well, we are very sad to have said goodbye to Jenny Engel, who retired at the end of last month. But we are happy to say that in the month of February, we thanked the group that had been the digital, what were they called? Task force that had created and put together the framework for the digital branch, and we welcomed and trained the staff people who are moving forward, at least for the next, I think we'll give them a 1 year or 2 year term, who are going to be continuing the building of the content and maintaining the information on the digital branch. Sorry, this is a little weird. We have seen one of the new members of the digital branch committee, Rachel Akaza. You've probably seen her name here before. She's heading up the teen resources on the digital branch, and she has coordinated staff across the county, people in every branch, to have weekly postings of teen-focused news posts, which is really exciting, just to see everyone across the county have their voice heard and have the opportunity to actually learn how to post and what how HTML works, and they're all have that training to actually get in there and participate in the building of content on the branch. Other stuff for the digital branch. it really ties in across the library and the staff. The marketing committee is working with the digital branch in creating a schedule of how we're going to promote what's on the front page of the website. The collections team is working together to determine, what kind of new resources we're going to get and databases, and we have new people trained to do ebooks and purchasing and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of exciting to see more staff being wrapped in to participate.
So and tying into that is the support thereof. So at the end of 2014, Jenny Engel, who it's a real loss to have relieved the organization. She worked with me very closely for about 12 years, and she was super duper knowledgeable, so we're wanting to get her position filled as soon as possible. She finished up the upgrade of the staff website to the new Drupal 7 content management system. David Lytle put the new firewalls in the cluster to better protect our network from attacks, hackers, spam, etc. We're also really working on our broadband, so we got the Comcast contracts up there, which doubled our branch public internet speeds and more. Part of that was also upgrading all of our Wi-Fi connections at the public branches, looking more towards the mobile, which has come up on strategic planning quite a bit, looking at the mobile users as much as using our resources as the wired public computers, so they all share a piece of the pie. We've seen almost instantaneous benefits with that, especially with the ebook workshops. Nancy Sampson last week at the Guerneville Lab was talking about how smashingly hers went for the public, so that's working really well. We're also upgrading all of our public internet PCs, bringing them up to Windows 7, Office 13. Beyond that, as far as 4C, what I'm going to be doing this next week, as a matter of fact, I'm going to Portland, Oregon to attend the Kosugi Customers of Circe Dynex Conference. That's the users group for the ILS that we use, and so I'm hoping to find out what's coming down the pipe, so to speak, about new possibilities for how we present our materials, how to better catalog them, how to make it easier for staff. We're going to be doing an upgrade of the Horizon system this year. We're also going to be migrating to newer servers. So quite a bit of stuff is going on. Is there any questions you might have about any of that stuff?
Nope. Sounds great.
All right.
Exciting.
Very exciting.
And I'm just going to stay up here because I think the next thing on the agenda is talking about scenic.
Yes.
However, I'm going to switch this out real quick. I like toys. So we talked about scenic just a little bit last time. One of the core functions of the IT unit is really maintaining our networks to support staff operations and public services, and how the network and we can use that. And when our services are not able to support those applications, to upgrade them. So in the last year, that's been a real focus with the Comcast upgrades that I just mentioned, the Wi-Fi upgrades, and then during this time, we also were presented with an opportunity to investigate joining the Scenic. So what that was, Scenic itself has been around for many years. I think it was late 90s when they first formed for education, kindergarten through university levels, and they were bringing libraries on this first year onto their network. And so over the past 6 months ago, it really intensified how much involvement we had with them. So we signed a letter of intent to move forward with this. Is really loud. To move forward with investigating joining them on their network. And so during the course from October through December, we were gathering more and more information. In December, we had a call with them where they talked about our network and what we would need to do to that network to be able to join up with theirs. And then what they did was they actually went to bid for us to find out what it would cost us to join them and what we could get. And so they came back with a bid, and I guess February 1st is when we got that bid, and then we're looking at what we have now, which is on the first slide. This is all in your packet, too. I've noticed that it's kind of awkward for y'all to spin around, so I did it that way as well. What we provided now, you can see that our current pricing, it's about almost $100,000 pre-E-rate reimbursements, which brings that all the way down to about $20,000. So we are very reliant upon those E-rate funds. Right now, we have an OptiMan network, which is fiber networks connections to all 9 of our branches with 4 T1 connections, which are markedly slower, those slower branches being Cloverdale, Guerneville, and the 2 rurals. So that was one of the interesting things about joining up with Scenic. So I think I mentioned last time it sounded almost magical what they could do for us. And the devil is in the details, I guess. When they came back with us, they said they could provide, and they would, 10 times the current broadband capacity to the branches on a 5-year pricing structure. When we started getting into the minutia of it, though, we have continual reimbursements for our E-rate throughout the year. So from that $100,000, it brought it down to that 19. We would see that on a month-to-month basis. With Scenic, on the other hand, you pay the entire thing all through the year, and then into the next year they would reimburse us. So we would a heavy upfront investment. Sorry, I'm feeling a little afraid this evening. This next slide. There is, I apologize, and this is one of the reasons why I might be feeling a bit afraid, is a typo in there. On the Scenic stuff, what you can see is the pre-discounted pricing is $122,000, almost $123,000. What they didn't put on their spreadsheet is you actually pay tax and surcharges on those fees. So on top of that, whereas they may reimburse us for that $122,000, we still have to pay taxes on it. So that's all. Right off the top, we're paying an extra $12,000 for those services. Additionally, there's $22,000 that we would have to buy new hardware to support that framework, which brings our first-year investment to $40,426. AT&T, while we were doing this whole thing, we're currently working with Infinity Communications as our E-rate consultant. So during this whole Scenic process, on one front, moving forward with what we could get, we were moving forward to make sure we had something just in case. And so they were going to filing our E-rate paperwork as they have and getting their own bids for AT&T. What they came back with was markedly less expensive pricing. And this came back very close to the time that we actually were having to make a decision with Scenic. So as you can see on the handout and the slides, their pricing for what we have now dropped from that $99,000 all the way down to $43,000, a little bit more than $43,321. What that also adds, though, are not fiber, the same capacity network connections at Guerneville and Cloverdale, which boost their staff broadband about 7 to 8 times capacity. Keeping in mind that right now, between the Comcast upgrades and what we have with the OptiMan currently, we have plenty of bandwidth for the time being. Additionally, with AT&T's bid via Infinity, we could get that 10 times down the road without any hardware cost upgrades. So Where the typo is on the board, for the AT&T, if we stick with the current what we have now, and the addition of getting the 10 meg downloads to Cloverdale and Guerneville brings our total down to $11,782 a year. And that's actually, that's the part that I missed. See, it's $4,000 for the charges with the $6,500 in taxes for the $11,782 a year. Even if we down the road with Infinity and AT&T want to upgrade to that higher package, we're still only looking at just shy of $16,000 a year versus the $40,000 with Scenic. Not discounting that Scenic is trying to do a very good thing for libraries. One of the things that we're looking at, you know, as I mentioned, it's higher prices. It's the first year of a state library project. So this opportunity to join them will come around again, and maybe their prices will come down. But right now, we're not relying on soft funds. It's lower pricing. We keep our periodic E-rate discounts rather than having to full fund the full year. We still have those options for upgrades in the future as we need them. So for this first year of the project, we decided to decline our membership with Scenic this year and to accept the AT&T RFP with our Infinity Communications and then continue to monitoring it. So, and reevaluate on annual basis. Any questions? So we talked about this a little bit last week.
So how much have we increased our bandwidth from what we had till, or will we, I guess?
Well, for the Comcast, the public, that was the biggest downfall of where we were as far as providing broadband to the public, specifically the wireless stuff. From then, we've doubled in each of the branches, going from the 20 to the 50. It's actually about 55. Moreover, we've removed all the throttles from the Wi-Fi devices. So your tablets, your phones, whatnot, they get the same equal share of the broadband, and we're nowhere near peak. We're nowhere near the peak of the pipeline for the public. Staff, we're even lower down that pipe. So for the time being, we have plenty of bandwidth. As we move down the road with the option for upgrades, we'll be able to reflect that.
So if, for example, we wanted to put portable laptop computers as a lab in the room, as we talked about in Guerneville, now we have the bandwidth to do that.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I've been kind of thinking about in the back of my mind is, so we are doing the mobile lab. We're going to be getting some devices, and mobile tech is something that we want to bring to the library so that people can come in and they can learn and they can do their classes for technology. It came up tonight in your stuff. So they can use all the Wi-Fi that we have now. Additionally, with our internal staff network, we could actually start hosting content for classes and then push it out to the branches on our devices. And we have the space and capacity to do so. Moreover, as we need, we can upgrade with a contract. And we'd have 10 times what we have now.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the Cloverdale Facilities Project update.
Hi. We wanted to give you a quick update on the facilities out at Cloverdale because in this year's budget, about a year ago, the commission approved $100,000 to be transferred from special revenue funds to do the carpet and make the shelving out at Cloverdale seismically secure. When that when Brett and I got here, last summer, we began to look at the project and started looking at it and thought, well, if we're going to empty the building out and close the building for a week or two to get that done, maybe we should do a little bit more and we can get a lot more done for not a whole lot more money. And so this is what we're proposing to do, is really a refresh of the interior of Cloverdale. And it'll probably go into next fiscal year, and so we'll be requesting the $100,000 that was approved in this year's budget to be carry over to next year, and probably ask for a little more money to get this done.
How much more do you think you're going to be asking for?
We think it'll be around, the total will be around $200,000.
Thank you.
So just a quick timeline. When we started this in late summer, we asked to get ideas from the staff out at Cloverdale, big or small, and they gave us a lot of good ideas, and we were looking at things. And then we kind of delayed the project because of Measure M, because quite frankly, if Measure M passed, the project could all of a sudden become a lot bigger, and we could do some really good things. We picked it back up in January and understood that we don't have the expertise like in space planning and stuff like that, so we started to contact the county project management department to get us a little help with space planning and looking at the project from a little bit different way. Some of the things that you'll see in the pictures that we don't, a modern library has a lot of flexible space and sight lines are a lot different. And as you can see from the pictures, the Cloverdale Library was constructed in 1979 and the interior really hasn't had a lot done to it since then. On page 49, you'll see the current service desk coming. That's the circulation desk as you walk in the building. And that picture was taken from about 8 to 10 feet away. And there's another desk, reference desk right there. So there's two desks in a very small space in a very small building. The building's only 7,200 square feet. But you'll also see the carpet. That's the original carpet. And like I said, the original CERT desk. And what we're thinking about to give us more space right away is combining those two desks into a single point of service, similar to what was done at Sonoma and Sebastopol, if you've been in those buildings. What the heck? Oh, yeah, sorry. I got that. Uh-oh. On page 50, you'll also see some of the furniture, and the one thing that you'll see real quickly there is there's no shelf ends on the current shelves out at Cloverdale, and that's something that makes a whole lot of difference for not a whole lot of money. Just putting shelf ends on things cleans it up real quickly. And you can also see some of the age of the furniture there. The chairs and the study carrels, the computer carrels, and things like that. The next page, page 51, shows some more of the furniture, and I really believe that that's still from 1979 when the building was opened. Here again, page 52 shows some of the chairs that are out there currently, and we can get all new furniture for not a whole lot of money and make the spaces a lot better for people out there. And so, yes, on this next slide, you can see a lot of things that new libraries use, whether it's just smaller, lower shelving units, more open space. Here's some shelving units that are on wheels that can be moved really easily if you need the space. And it's really important, especially in a small building like out at Cloverdale. You can use color to bring things out that back in here real quickly. When you walk in, that color, you just focus right on it right away. The other thing you can do is use carpet to define spaces very easily, and especially it's really good in small buildings again for like youth areas for the kids or teen areas. You can define the spaces real quickly by just putting a strip of carpet in. But these are the types of things that we'll be focusing on as we move into this project to try and open the space up a little bit and define the spaces a lot better. No, it's not working. Okay. And the next few slides are pictures from the Sonoma Branch. And Sonoma is a real good example of a library in our system that we'd like all the libraries to look like. The first picture on page 54 is a single point of service desk. You can see that 2 or 3 people can be at that desk at one time, both reference and circulation staff. And when patrons walk through the door, they don't have to guess what desk they go to. They go to one and they can get help there. On page 55 is the next slide just shows some of the modern furniture that's out at Sonoma and some of the space there, the tables. In the background, you can see some of the nicer, comfy chairs, more modern chairs back there. On the next slide, on page 56, it's just a real good example of how you can create spaces very easily with furniture, tables, and shelving units there. So that's a nice little meeting space for a small group. And that's, like I said, this is one of the areas we want all the libraries to have this type of meeting spaces. And then on page 57, the next slide just kind of shows the entrance, and it's got the self-checks there that we have at some of the libraries, and we want to put one in at Cloverdale during this renovation or the refresh. And so, this was a story about Cloverdale, but it's really a story about a lot of our buildings. And what we're hoping is that this is the first of many. We think that we should do a refresh every year, and that would put the cycle on 11 or 12-year cycle for all the buildings, and even that might be a little long, but we think that's a good place to start. So we're hoping Cloverdale will be the first one, the first refresh next year, and then as we go through our facilities plan, we'll look at other branches and updating them. So the next one is, we want the library to be space for everybody, kids, groups, older people, older adults, reading, programs, everything. So that's what we're trying to do with the refresh, and we'll be proposing this at the next meeting in the budget workshop. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, do you have any questions?
Any comments or questions or? Okay, thanks a lot, Ken.
All right.
All right, and then now we're moving on to the workers' compensation document update. And I'm sorry that Commissioner Sanders is not here tonight, because I know this is a subject near and dear to her heart. So hopefully she'll catch up on what we're hearing about.
I do think that she met with Patrick and Ken about this last week. Yes.
No, it'll be videotaped, so she can. I would encourage, when we don't come to meetings, that we at least kind of check out the videotape and the stuff. I thought she might have comments. Did I what? No.
So I'm not sure if you received the revised copy of this. The original packet didn't have the pictures, but there are copies of the same document with some pictures, which I'll be showing here. Our workers' compensation policy is coming up for renewal, and you'll receive a presentation at the May meeting, and then you'll have to approve the renewal at the June meeting. So I thought we'd just start to give a little education about the workers' compensation and the impact that it has on the library's budget. Currently, our annual premium is over $250,000. We did budget $293,000 this year. Fortunately, the actual policy came in less than that. So for some of you who may not be quite as familiar with workers' comp, it is a state-mandated program. It's a program of no-fault insurance, and it covers work-related accidents, injuries, and illness caused by or arising out of an individual's employment. It's overseen by the State Department of Industrial Relations as well as the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau. So the question is, what are some of the benefits provided by workers' comp? It covers medical costs incurred as a result of the injury or accident. It also provides wage loss payments whenever there's disability resulting from that injury or accident. It provides payments for any determination of permanent disability that a person may suffer because of that accident or injury. It also provides reimbursement for vocational rehabilitation should an individual need training to enter into a different career field because their injury prevents them from continuing in their present line of work. And it also provides for some nominal death benefits. How is it provided? You can purchase it from a private workers' compensation insurance carrier that's licensed in the state of California. An employer can self-insure, or you can do a combination of both. You can obtain it directly from the insurance carrier or through an insurance broker or through an association. Our current workers' compensation carrier is Berkshire Hathaway. We've been with them since 2002. And we utilize Wells Fargo Insurance Services as our broker. And as I mentioned, the policy is up for renewal July 1st, and currently Wells Fargo Insurance is marketing the policy. So how is our premium determined? It's based on what we refer to as an experience modification rate, or for short, we call it the Xmod. It's based on rates established by the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau, as well as an insurance company's own underwriting guidelines. And all of these are subject to changes in law, statewide statistics, market conditions, so on and so forth. So the question has come up some prior meetings, what is the Xmod exactly and how is it calculated? First of all, it's determined in part by the employer's classification as set by the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau. It's determined in part by the frequency of claims, how many you've had during the policy year, as well as severity of claims, how much money is paid out for the claims or is set aside to pay for future costs of the claim. It's also based on employers' payroll. So if your number of claims stays static but your payroll increases, your Xmod goes down. If your number of claims stays static but your payroll goes down, your Xmod goes up. You want your Xmod to go down. You don't want it to go up. So in some respect, you don't always have control over that. 1 or 100% is the standard. It represents the loss experience average for all employers in the state in that classification. So to explain a little bit more, what does that mean in terms of the library? The majority of our employees are classified by the state under Code 8810-4, which refers to libraries, public librarians or professional assistants, and also includes clerical office employees. All right. However, that's a subset of the larger classification, 8810 clerical office employees. And what that means is when they come up with an experience rate for the library, it's based on the average loss experience for essentially all clerical employees, all employers throughout the state of California, not just libraries. Well, that results in some significant difference in types of tasks performed in library setting versus typical office setting. And I just have a few pictures here to sort of emphasize that difference. Usually what you're going to see in an office setting is a person sitting at a desk like this and keyboarding. And, you know, the biggest risk there typically is repetitive motion injuries. But generally speaking, you know, some minor things can be done to help reduce that risk. But now if you look at some of the types of tasks that are performed at the library, one, for example, is unloading the book bins, which involves grasping books repetitively. It involves bending over to reach down into the bin, even if you have one that has an adjustable height bottom, as well as rolling that bin from the drop-off to the circulation area. Look to the next page. Again, one of the things that happens is books come in and the boxes have to be unpacked. Not only that, but every single item that's in that box has to be individually handled. Again, a fair amount of gripping, grasping, what have you. Again, not something you would necessarily see in a regular office environment. Again, we have employees that are having to move those books from one location to the other by pushing the book carts. And this one is not a fully loaded one, but a fully loaded book cart can weigh upwards of 200 pounds. Thankfully, because of the way that the carts are designed and the wheels, it's not as difficult to push as you might think, but that's still a fair amount of force required to push that. Another task that's performed is just retrieving materials off of the shelf. And again, these are things you would not typically find in an office environment, but this is what our staff does every single day that we're opened. So there, in addition to the gripping and grasping, pulling books off the shelf, there's potentially also a fall risk there, just because you have to stand on a stool to reach the higher shelves. And then the reverse of that is placing books, or again, pulling books from the bottom shelf. It can require not only additional gripping and grasping, but also just bending over. So all of those things make our staff just ripe for injuries, either specific trauma or accident, but particularly repetitive motion, because these are things that are not done just once in a while. Staff are engaged in these activities every day, every hour, throughout the hour. So again, one might say that the tasks that we perform in a library are comparable to those performed by grocery store clerks, and that's probably a true statement. However, it's the WCIRB which sets the classification. We don't have any control over that classification. Because we've wondered aloud to ourselves, well, what if we were classified more like a grocery store? Wouldn't our Xmod then be lower, because you'd be taking the average of all grocery store throughout the state? Well, yes, that's true, But because grocery stores are also more prone to accidents, it also involves a higher premium. In fact, if we were classified as a grocery store, we would see our premiums increase by 10 times. So the office clerical classification, even though it results in a higher Xmod for us, it is also one of the lower premium classifications in the system. So, talking again about the Xmod, what is the time frame used in calculating the Xmod? It's calculated based on a rolling 3 full policy years. So it's not just the past year, but it's actually the 3 prior years. So, for example, our Xmod for this fiscal year, 2014-2015, is 252%. Meaning that we're 152% above the standard, which is 100%. Meaning that we're 152% above all the other office workers in the state of California, all right? And it covers our experience from July 1 of 2002 through July 1 of 2013. It also represents a payout or reserve of $201,000 plus, either reserved or paid out in claims. Now in 2013-2014, our Xmod was 297, and that covered July 1 of 2009 through July 1 of 2012, and represented $275,615 reserved or paid out in claims. Now, what's important about that is we may have an excellent year this year in terms of our number of claims, but if the last year in the 3-year period that drops off was less than this most recent year, we're going to end up, in a worse condition. So even though we may be slowly improving, if total overall over the 3 years, those amounts are greater than the prior 3-year period, then you're going to see an increase in your Xmod. And so that's one of the things that we're up against. Again, it takes into account long-term versus short-term in calculating the Xmod. So that's a beginning summary of workers' comp and what it is. At the next meeting, I'll be talking more about our actual claim history, both the number of claims and severity of claims, and then we'll start talking a little bit more about what are some of our strategies for trying to lower our Xmod, contain our workers' compensation costs, because obviously $250,000 is a big chunk of the budget. And actually, I've got 2 slides here that might help to understand the rolling 3-month period. Okay, so what you have here is a chart showing the severity of our claims per policy year. And I mentioned that our Xmod right now is 252%. I was hoping to try to avoid this, but I'll forewarn you now that for this next policy year, our Xmod has jumped up to 281%. But this is why. If you look at the red bracket, you'll see the 7/1/12/13 policy year, and it goes all the way through the 7/1/15 policy year. Okay.
It's hard for us to read that. Can you tell us just which silo that is?
The right side.
Okay.
Okay. So the last three bars on the right side, those are the policy years that will impact our premium in 2015, 2016. If you total up those dollar amounts, you will see that they're actually higher than if you totaled up the three columns, from 7/1/11 through 7/1/14. Okay. So what's happened is, even though our claim severity is low right now, we had 1 year that was very high, and you drop off one of the prior years, it just creates an overall increase in your loss expense. Okay. Similarly with the frequency of claims. Here you can see the contrast a little bit better. If you start with policy year 7/1/11, 7/1/12, which is towards the middle of the chart, you see we had a total of 14 claims that year, the following year 12, and the following year 16. But when you look at these last three, actually, I see that, disregard the red brackets. I just see what they did. This is for another policy year, but for the policy year coming up, we're looking at, you add together 14, 12, and 16. The period prior to that, it was 20, 14, and 12, okay? So again, adding those up, you'll see the difference in the numbers, and that's what results in a higher increase in our Xmod. So now that I've thoroughly confused you, any questions about that?
So my comment is that if we're going to discuss this again, we need to have copies of those charts.
I can get you copies of these. We just received these charts on Friday, so.
Yeah, at the next meeting, have them.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you'll be answering the questions that we all probably have at the next meeting. So this is a good background that you gave today and a good explanation of the Xmod.
And if you want to present to me some of those questions now, I don't need to answer them now, but I can make sure that we address some of those questions at the next meeting.
I think your list of things that you said you're going to talk about, that's where my questions
Okay.
The number of claims and what we're going to do about it and that sort of thing.
Okay. And as Brett mentioned, Commissioner Sanders did join us in our quarterly workers' comp claim review on Friday. And that's a process where we go through all of our outstanding claims, strategies for closing them in the future, what have you. So I think she got a better sense of, some of the challenges that we're up against, as well as we had some initial conversations about what might be some of our future strategies to bring that Xmod down.
I do have a question for maybe next time, Patrick, and that is, I've been hearing things on the news about, and of course on the Finance Committee, and as part of the Commission, I'm concerned about costs and also benefits and things like that. So what I've kind of heard on the news was how workers' comp throughout the state or the country has actually, there's a lot of disparity between how people in different states receive compensation, how much they receive for similar injuries. And so I'm concerned that we take care of our employees and in addition to reducing costs as much as possible, make sure that we have the best product that we can.
Right. Well, just one comment about that. an employer doesn't determine what those benefits are going to be. Those
That's
are
determined by the
completely
state.
determined by the state. And California has one of the more generous workers' compensation programs in the nation. So, no, we don't have any control over that.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, thanks very much, and we look forward to next month's report. There are no action items by resolution, so it looks like we have the lab appointments, item number 13. And my page in my packet didn't come up with the number at the top. So I wrote my own. So any comments, or do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Okay. And then what items shall we be asking Rebecca to include on the next commission notes, which I find are very well received, by the way, when they're sent out. So any thoughts from today's meeting or any other activities that are happening that we want Rebecca to be sure to add in the notes?
There's a couple of events coming up. There was the authors at Central and the reception for your art program. Invite people to those. Also, just a real short blurb on how the thing at the strategic planning is going.
Is the Santa Rosa Symphony coming up too again, or is that over for now?
It's ongoing.
Okay, that might be.
Right, aren't there 6 concerts a year? 4? Okay. A quarter, 6 concerts
quarter.
a quarter. I misread that. Okay. Okay, that would be good.
Exciting news is we're having our budget meeting coming up. Anybody want to come to that? That's great.
Budget workshop.
It's a lively discussion.
At 9:30, yeah. What is happening for lunch?
Tracy Gray.
Yes, new Central Branch manager. Anything else? Okay.
I think Tony's award would be a good thing. His days are drawing nigh.
And
it was a real honor, actually, so it was nice to see.
And Jenny, probably people know her. All right, so our next meeting is the annual budget workshop, Monday, April 13th at 9:30 here in the chambers. All right, shall we adjourn?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I just couldn't really.
You still texting?
Busy. Where we at?
County morgue?
Not on my schedule.
You scheduled it when you T-boned that minivan and sent 2 people to the hospital. Guess you was paying more attention to that thing than the road.
Making sure my wife picks up my suit.
Sounds like a text message that just couldn't wait.
Texting and driving. A killer combination.
Santa Rosa, out there in the middle of everything.
You still texting?
I gotta let daycare know that I'm running late. They charge if you're late. And I'm not usually one of those people to text and drive, and I was almost done with my text when that car came out of nowhere.
You still veered in oncoming traffic. And that text message, it never got through.
One text or call could wreck it all.
Santa Rosa, out there in the middle of everything.
You still texting?
Busy. Where we at?
County morgue?
Not on my schedule.
You scheduled it when you T-boned that minivan and sent 2 people to the hospital. Guess you was paying more attention to that thing than the road.
Making sure my wife picks up my suit.
Sounds like a text message that just couldn't wait.
Texting and driving. A killer combination.
In recreation and parks, the days begin when the sun rises. Most of our workspaces don't have 4 walls or a desk, but there's a lot to be done to get this place up and running. It takes a big team to cover so much ground. Each space is unique, requiring its own special method of care and service. And it's of utmost importance to see that it happens each day, because our workspace is your leisure space. And it includes 950 acres of Santa Rosa. It's the parks, the trees, the fields, the trails, special gathering places, community spaces, and it belongs to everyone.
We work for our community,
striving to improve quality of life.
We provide family experiences, friendly competitions, leisurely evenings,
and places to bond with man's best friend.
We create space for celebration, relaxation, and artistic expression.
You can learn to serve a ball or learn to serve a meal.
Take a walk on a path or walk the plank.
We've got beautiful settings, space to show off our history.
We have room to roam, to roll, or to run.
We allow for the silly, the serious, the cool.
We offer countless ways to work on your health.
We keep our youth safe and teach them to keep others safe.
We challenge people to want to challenge themselves.
We foster creativity, guide athletes, hone passions.
We allow for little minds to dream.
And we'll keep doing what we do each day.